Princess Diana was beloved by millions of people around the world, but the people's princess didn't have as much of a fairy tale life as you might think. Keep watching to learn more about the tragic real-life story of Princess Diana. Many children are hugely affected by their parents' divorce, and Diana Spencer was no exception. In 1967, her mother, Frances, decided to leave Diana's father, John Spencer, an earl and nobleman. Diana talked about the painful experience in 1991 with author Andrew Morton, who ended up writing the book Diana, Her True Story. Diana told Morton, "The biggest disruption was when Mummy decided to leg it. That's the vivid memory the four of us children have." Diana's childhood was far from idyllic. She told Morton, "It was a very unhappy childhood. Always seeing our mum crying. Daddy never spoke to us about it. We could never ask questions. Very unstable, the whole thing." A variety of nannies took care of Diana and her siblings during this period, and Diana believed they mostly came to work for their family because they were attracted to her dad. They were young, pretty, and specifically chosen by the Earl to watch his children. She recalled, "It was terribly disruptive to come back from school one day to find a new nanny." Young Diana struggled with her place in life. When she was 14, she felt like she didn't have any skills and wasn't particularly good at, well, anything. The future princess felt like a nuisance, and it wasn't until many years later that she made sense of those feelings. She believed that it involved the baby brother who had passed away before she was born. Her parents had a son, John, in 1960. He survived for 10 hours. She told Morton, "Both my parents were crazy to have a son and heir." The couple already had 2 daughters, so when Diana was born after John's death, they were likely disappointed, at least in Diana's eyes. She quipped, "What a bore. We're going to have to try again." Upon reflection, Diana said that she understood the mentality and she accepted it. Still, it must have been pretty painful for her to believe that her parents didn't really want her. Their 4th child, Charles, would eventually fill the role of son and heir. In 1975, Diana's father became Earl Spencer and inherited the Althorpe estate in Northampton. He uprooted the family from Norfolk to make a new life there. This is also when her father started dating Diana's stepmother, Rain. Diana said she and her siblings hated Rain because they were scared she was going to take their father away from them. Diana told Morton, "She was very clever and she wanted to marry Daddy. That was her target, and that was it." Then in 1978, John Spencer had a brain hemorrhage, and Diana was told that he was going to die. What made the situation even worse was that she and her siblings were banned from the hospital. Diana explained, "We saw another side of Rain, which we hadn't anticipated, as she basically blocked us out of the hospital. She wouldn't let us see Daddy." Eventually, John recovered and was released from the hospital, but according to Diana, his character had entirely changed. Diana, whose marriage to Charles famously ended in divorce, wasn't the first Spencer to date the prince. 6 years older than Diana, Sarah Spencer hung out in the same social circles as Charles, according to Marie Claire. In 1977, when she was 22 years old, Sarah dated Charles, who was 28. There's not much information about their relationship except that they reportedly spent time together at a Swiss ski resort. It's unclear what Charles thought about their relationship, but Sarah's thoughts were published in an interview in which she revealed she would, quote, "not marry Charles if he were the dustman or the King of England." That must have stung the prince's ego. Sarah did admit that Charles made her laugh and that she enjoyed spending time with him. However, she also admitted, "There's no chance of me marrying him. I'm not in love with him, and I wouldn't marry anyone I didn't love." Sarah's bold statements aside, in 1981, she introduced Diana to her ex and was proud to call herself Cupid. Princess Diana was many things: a beautiful woman who mesmerized the world with her fairy tale wedding, a people's princess who charmed both those she met and those who worshipped her from afar, a fashionista who had an eye for style, and a charitable icon. But underneath it all, she was suffering and coping with bulimia, self-injury, and issues with self-esteem. During her tell-all interview with Andrew Morton in 1991, she talked about her eating disorder, calling it a symptom of what was happening in her marriage to Prince Charles. Diana talked about the disease during a 1995 interview with the BBC, explaining, "You inflict it upon yourself because your self-esteem is at a low ebb and you don't think you're worthy or valuable." She said that filling her stomach several times a day gave her comfort, but it was only temporary. She felt pressure to keep her marriage intact, but was crying out for help, and binging was a way for her to release her stress. The one good thing that came out of her admission was that it spurred other people to get help for the same problem. The press called it the Diana effect. According to National Geographic, there's a recording of Diana talking about a confrontation with Camilla Parker Bowles, who was Prince Charles's mistress.
Mrs. Parker Bowles is a great friend of mine. I have a large number of friends I'm terribly lucky to have.
Diana realized that Charles and Camilla were not upstairs at home when they were visiting, which she found disturbing, so she went downstairs and found the pair chatting with another friend. Diana joined the conversation and told Camilla she'd like to have a word with her in private, which made Camilla visibly uncomfortable. Diana admitted that she was terrified of Camilla, but she had the courage to say, "I'd just like you to know that I know exactly what is going on." Camilla denied knowing what Diana was talking about, and Diana responded that she knew what was going on between her and Charles. Camilla responded by saying, "You've got everything you've ever wanted. All the men in the world fall in love with you." Camilla pointed out that Diana had beautiful children, so what more could she want? Diana replied, "I want my husband." Diana then sarcastically apologized for being in the way of their relationship.
Well, there were 3 of us in this marriage, so it was a bit crowded.
On their way home, Diana recalled crying uncontrollably in front of Charles and later reflected on how much anger and jealousy she felt.
As I've said before, it is a deeply regrettable thing to happen.
In 1985, Scotland Yard officer Barry Manicky was assigned to be one of Diana's bodyguards. Diana's marriage was over in all but name, and the princess was in desperate need of love and affection. She and Manicky started bonding during a trip to Scotland. Biographer Sally Bedell Smith said of their relationship, "When she was in floods of tears, he hugged and reassured her. She flirted with him, and he, perhaps unwisely, boosted her self-esteem with compliments. Even though they were each married, they allegedly had great affection for one another. He accompanied her on several trips around the world." In 1992, Diana spoke about Manicky to her voice coach, saying, "I was always wandering around trying to see him. I was only happy when he was around." There's a debate about whether they had a physical relationship and no clear answer. Either way, the relationship was intense. Manicky was transferred from bodyguard duty in 1986 and died the following year in a motorcycle crash. Diana later recalled, "That was the biggest blow of my life." Conspiracy theorists suggest he was killed intentionally. Diana and Prince Charles separated in 1992 and officially divorced in 1996. When she was married to the Prince of Wales, Diana had 2 sons and lived a life of luxury. But neither one of them was happy in their relationship, which led to extramarital affairs and mental health issues. Diana lived a life in the spotlight, and her private life was scrutinized. She coped with the stress by seeking affection from others and struggling with bulimia. When she and Charles divorced, Diana was given an annual stipend of $625,000 and a lump sum of $26 million, according to Reader's Digest. But along with this financial compensation came a lot of loss. One of the first things she lost was her royal title, because Charles reportedly insisted on it. She was no longer Her Royal Highness, which meant she had to curtsy to others with the title, including Charles and her 2 sons. Diana also lost most of her staff, as well as her office at St. James Place. Her police protection was drastically reduced, and she was unable to support the more than 100 charities she had committed to while married to Charles. In addition, just months before her death, Diana felt like she was under surveillance and even worried that someone was out to get her, to the point where she feared for her life. Even though Diana's relationship with Prince Charles ended up failing, she didn't give up on love. She also reportedly sought emotional support from other men over the course of her marriage, including with one of her childhood friends, James Gilby, according to Honey. In 1992, intimate phone conversations between Diana and James that occurred in 1989 were released to the public. The tapes, which were considered scandalous, indicated that Diana and James had an intimate relationship, even though up until that point they claimed they were just friends. By the time the tapes were released, the pair had allegedly moved on from the relationship, which took place while Diana and Charles were having problems. At the time, Charles had a mistress, Camilla, and Diana felt a lot of pressure in her role in the royal family. James never talked publicly about his relationship with Diana, even after her death. When she was 4 months pregnant with her son William, Diana allegedly threw herself down the stairs, according to the tapes recorded by Andrew Morton. Diana reportedly took this drastic measure because she was trying to get her husband to listen to her. She was crying uncontrollably at that time and told Charles she was feeling desperate. His alleged response was that she was crying wolf and he refused to listen to her. He then reportedly said, "You're always doing this to me. I'm going riding now." Diana's response was to throw herself down the stairs. She recalled, "The Queen comes out, absolutely horrified, shaking. She was so frightened." Fortunately, Diana only had some bruises around her stomach, and she was confident that she wasn't going to lose her child. Diana made the tapes for Morton under the condition that no one knew she was complicit. The transcripts of the tape were released after she died in 1997, 5 years after he published his book. Morton told The Independent he wouldn't have released them if she hadn't died. On August 30th, 1997, Diana and Dodi Fayed, an Egyptian billionaire, traveled to Paris, France together. The pair were reportedly dating and had dinner at the Ritz Hotel before leaving after midnight to go to Fayed's private Parisian estate, according to Oprah Daily. The driver, Henri Paul, took them through a tunnel at 70 miles per hour, even though the speed limit was 30 miles per hour. He lost control and crashed. Paul and Fayed died immediately while Diana was transported to the hospital. She died from internal bleeding. Forensic pathologist Dr. Richard Shepard believes Diana may have survived the crash if she had been wearing a seatbelt. Her bodyguard was the only one in the vehicle who wore one, and he survived. What caused the crash? Paul had reportedly been drinking, and the car was being chased by paparazzi and cars and on motorcycles. 9 photographers were charged with manslaughter, but they were found not guilty. Diana was just 36 years old. If you or someone you know is struggling with mental health, please contact the Crisis Text Line by texting HOME to 741-741 or call the National Alliance on Mental Illness Helpline at 1-800-950-NAMI 6264 or visit the National Institute of Mental Health website.